In the glory days of the Oyo Empire, when an Alaafin dies, Alaafin bá wàjà, certain people must also die with the Alaafin. And it wasn't just the Abobaku who died with the Alaafin. The list is actually a very long one. It may shock you to know that the Crown Prince, the Aremo, actually also died with the Alaafin. Other important personalities like Ìyá Ọba, Ìyálé Mọlẹ̀, Ààrẹ Orí Ìtẹ́, all of them die with the Alaafin. The Ìyá Ọba in this case is not the king's actual mother. There is another provision for the biological mother of the Alaafin. Since the Alaafin is Ikú Bàbá Yèyé, Aláṣẹ Ìkejì Òrìṣà, he is considered second only to the deities. Ìkejì Òrìṣà ni Alaafin jẹ́. He is not a mere man, not a mere ordinary mortal, and he is treated accordingly. The Alaafin must not bow to anybody, and it is a taboo for a mother to bow down to her own son. So since the Alaafin cannot bow down to his mother, and it is an award for the mother to bow down for the son, therefore, one will have to exit for the other. And so before any man ascends to the throne of his ancestors, before a person is crowned Alaafin, the mother is excused. That may sound a bit harsh, or you may say cruel, but it is what it is. It actually happened that way. So when I say Ìyá Ọba in this video, we are talking about the king's official mother. The biological mother is excused, and another person is installed as the king's official mother. Now about the king's son, the Aremo, dying with the Alaafin. This wasn't the way it was in the beginning. In the beginning, sons became king after the departure of their fathers. But the ages soon began getting very, very corrupt. And then we started having sons who wanted their fathers dead so that they could become king. Living very long in those days as a king was a dangerous thing, because your son could be feeling like, this man is staying too long on this throne. He's wasting my time. I mean, I want to taste this thing too. So why can't we just delete him? I mean, he spent enough time anyway. And not just the Aremo, actually. The closest people to the Alaafin have in one time or the other tried to assassinate the king so that they could have access to the throne. Therefore, the Oyomesi decided to do something very drastic. The Oyomesi was a group of 7 chiefs who acted as the legislators, the lawmakers. These chiefs, who were actually also the kingmakers, decided to amend the constitution of the Oyo Empire. The Oyomesi now made it a law that when the king dies, the king's son must also die with him. Also to die with the Alaafin was the Olokun Eshin. Olokun Eshin is the king's horseman and is generally called Abobaku, meaning the one who dies with the Oba, the king. His own death was more spiritual than political. Since he is the king's horseman, he dies with the king so that he can continue his journey in the hereafter. The king cannot ascend to the world of the ancestors and then be trekking now. No, he has to move on the back of his horse, and for that, he needs his horseman. That is why the Olokun Eshin dies with the Oba. Now the Ìyálé Mọlẹ̀, Ìyálé Irúnmọlẹ̀, also enjoys unhindered access to the king. Since she is only human like the rest of us, she could be tempted to harm the king in favor of another person. And that is why in the case of anything happening to the king, she also will be affected. If the king dies, she also dies. Now we have the Ààrẹ Orí Ìtẹ́. In those days, being the king's favorite wife was actually an office. You have your portfolio, you have the roles you will play, and you also have your own special quarter in the king's court. She's got special duties. She is always seen with the king in important places. She actually enjoys great access to the king. She could literally see the king at any time of her pleasing. So the tendency is high, very high, that she too could be used to harm the king. Therefore, she must die with the king. That way, every single one of them have their lives tied to that of the king. When good things happen to the king, the ripple effect gets to them, and so also for when bad things happen to the king, especially death. And that is so because the death of the king, especially when it is aided, when it is not caused by natural causes, it couldn't have been behind any of these persons. Without the connivance of any of these persons that have been mentioned, it would be impossible to have the king assassinated. So because of that very, very extreme law, they would never think of harming the king, because they know that the king's death meant their own death. And since the death of the king meant their own death, that means every one of them will do everything they can to make sure that the king lives long. They will never want the king to die young. And that is the aim of the lawmakers when they were making the law. Protect the king with your lives, because the long life of the king is your own long life too. Ìrọ̀rùn igi ni ìrọ̀rùn ẹyẹ. The crown prince, the Aremo, he enjoys great power while the king is alive. In fact, he rules together with his father. The Aremo doesn't just sit down and await his own time to become king. No, Aremo was actually an office. Areomo, that is the meaning of Aremo. Areomo, the president of the sons, the president of the royal children, the leader of the children of the crown. Areomo. That word Aremo is one that is also very similar to Oluomo, the prominent child, the chief or commander of the rest of the children. So he is an Are, that is an office. He actually rules and reigns together with his father. Certain districts or villages and what have you are kept under his control. Certain duties and powers are reserved for him, and these guys always got very power drunk, so despotic that they even misruled. They could literally behead anybody of their pleasing. These guys enjoyed great authority. They could be questioned only by the Alaafin. So you reign with your father and also die with your father. That was the law. That was a constitution. All of them, the Aremo, Abobaku, Iyale Mole, Areorite, they are all to die within 24 hours after the king's death has been announced. They go to their houses, enjoy their best meals, wear their best clothes, enjoy their best wives, and then take poison and die. Die peacefully and respectfully too. Failure to do this was considered very tragic and shameful. You were given a chance to prove yourself a hero and then you threw it out the window very dishonorably. And this is double tragedy for you actually, because you are going to die anyway, so it's only good you do it yourself. This kind of tragedy is what Wole Soyinka explored in his iconic play Death and the King's Horseman. In that play, the Abobaku, the Olokun Eshin, failed to kill himself because he was distracted by pleasure, and as a result he lived the rest of his life in the severe pain of regret and shame. This shame was considered too great a shame that even the son of the Abobaku in that play, Olunde, he couldn't bear it. He had to kill himself eventually because Ikuyajo Esinlo. Now this custom of the Aremo dying with the Alaafin was abolished in 1858 during the time of Alaafin Atiba. Atiba wanted his own Aremo to become king after him. He wanted to be succeeded by his own son, but the Are Ono Kakanfo of that time was too traditional to welcome that kind of a change. And I'm talking about Kurumi. To him, it was an abomination. This was a practice that had lasted many years, since the time of their fathers. Kurumi argued that law is law, and he argued that even Atiba himself would never have become king if not for that law that he now wants to abolish. Therefore, the Are Ono Kakanfo, Kurumi of Ijaye, waged war against the Alaafin of Oyo. This is the war we now call today Ijaye War, and I will be bringing the details of that war to you very soon. Keep staying with me, keep supporting the brand. If you want to hear more interesting historical stories like this, get my course Becoming Yoruba. It is available for pre-order on Seller, and the link through which you can place your own order has been provided in the description of this video. I soon shall be back like who never left, and indeed, Washiri.